Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 27th Ward, one of the greatest high schools in the city of Chicago, Crane Medical College Prep, which is a STEM school. We're very proud of it. It's only fitting that we will have a press conference about health at a medical school where young people are learning how to help people stay healthy. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you one of the best principals in the Board of Education line of principals in high school, Ms. Farida Shabazz.
Thank you, Alderman Burnett. Good morning, everyone. My name is Farida Shabazz. I am the principal of Crane Medical Preparatory High School, and it is my esteemed honor and pleasure to welcome all of you to our wonderful school here on the west side of Chicago. It goes without saying that we are Chicago's premier health science high school, where we work every day to prepare young people for college and careers in science and medicine. It also goes without saying that we are the only high school in the state of Illinois that has an early college program where our students take college level courses and have the opportunity to graduate with an associate's degree. So with the blessing of CPS CEO Dr. Janice Jackson and Alderman Walter Burnett, we are changing lives here on the west side of Chicago. I would like to take the opportunity to thank Senator Durbin, Mayor Lightfoot, CPS CEO Dr. Janice Jackson, and Alderman Burnett for doing everything that they can every day to make sure that our young people are healthy and well. We know that when our young people are healthy and well, they do well in school, and that is our goal, and it makes my job that much easier. Thank you so much, and welcome to Crane Medical Prep.
I can do I got it. Thank you for the kind words and introduction. It's great to be here today. I want to thank the mayor for joining us, and Janice Jackson Dr. Janice Jackson for her leadership with the Chicago Public Schools, Alderman Scott, Alderman Burnett, and others who will be speaking to us this morning. Last week, after years of inaction, the federal government finally woke up to the reality of the threat of vaping and e-cigarettes. I've been writing letters for 5 years, and nobody's been answering them. We knew for the longest period of time that the vaping industry was targeting kids across America. The report that just came out from the 2019 Youth Tobacco Survey proved the grim reality of vaping today. 2 years ago, 11% of high school students in America were vaping, 2 years ago. A year ago, that number was up to 20% from 11%, and this year it's up to 27%. That means that more than 1 out of 4 high school students across America are vaping and using e-cigarettes. And there's another grim statistic too. 10% of middle schoolers are vaping, and I'm afraid it even reaches to lower ages. Well, what's wrong with that? It's supposed to be a healthy alternative to cigarettes, right? Well, it turns out it's a killer. We've already lost 6 who've died as a result of vaping and almost 400 who've been hospitalized. I just left breakfast this morning where a Chicago doctor told me in making rounds at a major hospital this weekend, he came across 3 Chicago kids in for vaping, and their lives are hanging in the balance. That's how serious this conversation is. So last week, after years of inaction, finally action was taken. Juul, the major maker of e-vaping devices, was told to no longer advertise that they're a safe alternative to tobacco cigarettes. That has never been proven. There is no clinical testing whatsoever. It is a marketing technique to sell those little Juul devices that look like they belong in the computer. They're also announced last week in the White House with the President and the First Lady that they're going to start banning flavors. The flavors that are being sold now across the United States really don't have as a target audience 50-year-old chain smokers who want to give up tobacco. You look at the flavors, Razzle Dazzle, Razzleberry, gummy bears, bubble gum, unicorn milk. These are designed to appeal to children, and they do. We've got to put an end to it, and finally the FDA announced last week we're going to. They've had the authority to do this for 10 years. They're finally moving on it. Now we have a challenge. We've got to convince students first that it's a bad idea to vape. We've got to convince their parents that it's not a harmless cloud of smoke around their heads. And we've got to take into consideration today that 5 million high school students across the United States are using vaping products. They are addicted in different levels to nicotine. I wrote to the Surgeon General on Friday and said, give us some place to turn, at least a website for parents and teachers so that they can find a way to help these kids get over this nicotine addiction. The amount of nicotine which a child inhales in one hit on e-vaping is the equivalent of the nicotine in a whole pack of cigarettes, 24-pack of cigarettes. So it's an indication of the kind of addictions that we are going to face with these children. There are serious threats, for sure, to children across America. There's a sensitivity of everybody gathered in this room to what gun violence has done when it comes to children, and we are not going to lessen in any way our commitment to dealing with that issue and coming to grips with sensible gun safety. But let us not overlook this serious public health issue. It is one that we need to move on and move quickly to stop the addiction which we found in our schools. I'm going to try to get her name right here. Anna Pavicevic, just like it sounds. Has been a leader on this. She's a principal at Amundsen, and I'd like her to come up and say a few words.
Good morning. My name is Anna Pavicevic, and I'm the principal of Amundsen High School. I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to Ms. Shabazz for hosting us, and especially to Senator Durbin for his leadership and early understanding of how the unregulated vape industry is targeting teens and triggering a health epidemic of unpredictable consequences, not to mention a thriving black market. Senator Durbin, I implore you to continue your efforts, to escalate, to expedite, to do whatever you need to do to save America's children. Having observed this frightening uptick in possession and use of vapes by our city's children, my senior leadership team and I have been sounding the alarm on this issue for more than a year to anyone who will listen. Thank goodness I work in a district where leadership at the very top has a propensity for being responsive to those of us who work most closely with children on a daily basis. Hence my invitation to speak to you today. So allow me to share just a few facts I have personally experienced about vape use in high schools. While my experiences are limited to schools in Chicago, my individual study of this issue has confirmed that our vaping issues are mirrored throughout the country. Fact number one, the kids who vape are my kids, your kids, our kids. Vaping is not limited to a specific socioeconomic, racial, or academic strata. At my school, some of the best students and best athletes are vaping, convinced that this is just a harmless habit that is neither addictive nor related to drug use. They are wholly unaware of the insidious and deleterious nature of vaping. Fact number two, kids are bringing vapes into schools because they are virtually invisible in metal detectors and X-ray scanners. I know this because I personally held 12 different versions of vapes in my hand at one time and walked through both of our school's metal detectors. The metal detectors didn't ring, they didn't light up, they didn't react at all. Fact number three, when vapes and batteries are dismantled, they are difficult, if not impossible, to identify in backpacks filled with keys, coins, pens, and other items that a typical student has in a backpack. Fact number four, enterprising teens are pursuing a thriving black market business by securing empty pens and cartridges and filling them at home with, I don't know what, to be sold in schools at a cost of $20 to $40 each. Alarmingly, the teen consumers of this black market product also don't know what is in the vapes they are ingesting. Fact number five, the vapors from Juuls, cartridges, e-cigarettes, vapes, vials, or whatever you want to call them, dissipate before they are detected by the human senses, leading to student use in bathrooms, hallways, and even classrooms. Currently, the only option available to schools to detect vapors seems to be advertised at a cost of about $1,000 of pop. Extra sensitive smoke detectors, vape detectors, which is obviously cost prohibitive and a diversion from academic resources. Fact number six, America's children are the unwitting guinea pigs and victims of this unregulated industry and now are experiencing debilitating lung ailments and death. Today's consequences for our children and the growing black market are harbingers of the national health crisis we will face in the future, with unpredictable costs in human life and dollars. While at Amundsen we have tried to educate our students and community about the dangers of vaping, the issue is too big for us to manage and requires nationwide education, regulation, and laws. It comforts me to see that Chicago Public Schools principals and senior leadership, an alderman, a United States senator, and Chicago's new mayor have all come together to take this first critical step to abate this epidemic. At this time, it is my privilege to introduce Chicago's Honorable Mayor Lori Lightfoot, who by all accounts has already demonstrated a deep passion and unwavering commitment to ensuring that all of Chicago's children are educated, safe, and protected. Mayor Lightfoot.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone who's gathered here today, and particularly thank Principal Shabazz for allowing us to be here at Crane Medical Prep High School to talk about this important issue. I want to thank CPS CEO Dr. Janice Jackson, CPS Chief Health Officer Dr. Kenneth Fox, Dr. Allison Arwady, Commissioner of, I can say that now, the Commissioner of the Chicago Department of Public Health, Alderman Burnett, Alderman Scott, and Sybil Madison, who is our Deputy Mayor for Education and Human Services. If you listen to Senator Durbin, what you see is his passion around these issues. This is not an issue that has just come to him recently. He works hard every single day to make sure that he is advancing the cause of issues that are important to all of us here in Illinois. And putting public health at the top of his agenda has been a staple of his public life from the very beginning. The reason that you can't smoke on an airplane today is because of Dick Durbin's tireless efforts back in the 1980s. I am grateful he is continuing to advocate for common sense protections and ultimately to protect youth all across Illinois and particularly here in Chicago. All of us have seen the recent news about vaping-related injuries and deaths. The use of e-cigarettes and related vaping products have been surging, as both Senator Durbin and Principal from Odmonson said, threatening to get another generation completely and utterly hooked on nicotine, and to undo the decades of progress our nation has made in reducing tobacco use. The CDC has made it clear e-cigarettes are unsafe for everyone, but especially children, teens, and young adults. And we know e-cigarettes and vaping products aren't a healthy alternative to cigarettes. The fact that more than 80% of young people who try tobacco start with flavored products such as e-cigarettes and cigarillos isn't a coincidence. The companies that produce and market these products see children as part of their bottom line, as shamefully as that is. And I say this both as a mayor and as a mother. We will not stand idly by as flavored tobacco becomes young people's most common path to addiction. Chicago has confronted big tobacco companies in the past. We raised the purchasing aid in our city of tobacco products to 21. We banned tobacco discounts. We added e-cigarettes to the Clean Indoor Air Ordinance and filed lawsuits against online e-cigarette retailers for selling to Chicago's kids. While smoking levels have decreased in recent years, as we've heard, we have not done enough when it comes to e-cigarette products. These flavored tobacco products in particular pose new dangers to our young people. We support all of the efforts of Senator Durbin to raise awareness around this issue, which is why we will not be wasting any additional time. Under the leadership of Dr. Arwady and Dr. Jackson, CPS has already banned vaping in and near our schools. Furthermore, CPS is also providing guidance to school leaders, educators, parents on the dangers of these products. And these are just the initial investments we are making to build stronger schools and healthier learners. Yet I know that more needs to be done. That is why I am committing today to lead an effort to expand the current ban on sales of flavored e-cigarettes and other flavored tobacco products citywide. We will enlist the support of Public Health, of the Business Affairs and Licensing Department, and our colleagues in the City Council and small businesses and other stakeholders across the city. My administration is committed to hearing community input and bringing stakeholders to the table so that we can get this right. But the necessity for expanding this ban is clear. The dangers are manifesting themselves literally every day. We must act, and we will. That requires all of us coming together, rolling up our sleeves, and listening to community input and developing a plan. We must ensure that our children are protected from this epidemic. And the clause of advertising that targets our children, it's shameful. We saw this for decades. We know what this is, and we have to stand up and fight back against it, and we will. At this point, it's my pleasure to introduce the CEO of CPS, Dr. Janice Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor Lightfoot. I want to thank Principal Shabazz for hosting us today at Crane Medical Prep, one of the most promising schools on the west side, and I want to echo Alderman Burnett's comments about her being one of the best principals here in CPS. I also want to thank Principal Anna Popovich, who I had hoped would have a different last name after getting married this weekend that I could actually pronounce, for her passion and advocacy on this issue, so much so that she delivered the speech today on what would be the first day of her honeymoon. I had to say it. As educators, the three of us know that vaping is a growing menace for our students. And thanks to Senator Durbin's leadership, we are able to shine a light on this issue and underscore the seriousness of the vaping epidemic, not only in Chicago, but nationwide. I had the pleasure of discussing these issues with Senator Durbin last week at length, and it was clearly evident to me that he was very serious about making sure this is seen as a health emergency. When I was a high school teacher and principal, I saw firsthand that the access to cigarettes and the reduced access to cigarettes happened among Chicago public teen students. This made me optimistic that we were able to slow the use of tobacco amongst teens. As an educator and parent, learning that 21% of high school students are now vaping, and even more concerning that 10% of middle school students are vaping, as we've seen in the recent news, the potential health risks related to vaping are extremely serious for our young people. E-cigarettes are now the most commonly used nicotine product amongst youth, and so we need to attack this issue head on. In collaboration with Mayor Lightfoot and the city's public health department, the district, under the leadership of Dr. Fox, has begun notifying our parents and providing important information about the growing problem of vaping devices. This includes everything from how to spot an e-cigarette to tips about how to talk to students about the risk associated with this addictive habit. And because stopping this trend must begin with students themselves, we will work directly with our children to educate them on the dangers that they are exposing themselves to every time they consider vaping. We want to thank Senator Durbin and Mayor Lightfoot for leading this fight, and we are eager to work directly with our parents and our partners locally and nationally to bring an end to this public health emergency that disproportionately affects our children. Thank you for listening to our comments today, and I now open it up for questions.
And let me just say, in the interest of time, because Senator Durbin needs to get to DC, I'd appreciate it if we can take on-topic questions first. Happy to stay later if you got off-topic questions.
Mayor, explain this citywide ban on vaping products. Is day one of this, and is
No.
this including all of this?
We are focused on this issue thanks to Senator Durbin's leadership. We are going to be bringing the relevant stakeholders together, and we will propose an ordinance after we go through an engagement process.
Proposing a citywide ban.
Correct.
Mayor, is this a ban on all vaping sales in the city or just the flavored?
Flavored vaping products and
Why
tobacco
not on
products.
all of them?
I think that's more complicated. We're certainly going to look at that, but we're going to start with the flavored tobacco, and particularly because we know that this is like the gateway in which children become addicted. Really, our big focus here, we want to do much more in terms of public awareness and attack this notion that this is a safe alternative to smoking. But I think the alarm that all of us are raising today from the statistics that have been cited is that our children are using these products and becoming addicted, and the companies are targeting them, and we want to eliminate that possibility. Go ahead.
Senator Durbin, you have been making a lot of public statements, urgent statements about.
I'm trying to keep you in business, Craig.
We appreciate that, but you're doing it about something that even the president supposedly is on board. So what is your concern, given that everyone says that they're all for this?
It was encouraging to see that there was a press conference in the Oval Office with the President, First Lady, and members of his cabinet, and it was a powerful statement about taking the flavor pods off the streets as quickly as possible. And then, as you might expect, some 48 hours later, there was a tweet from the President that raised some questions about his commitment. I hope he is committed, and I hope the First Lady will join me in keeping him committed to this. But there's a lot of work to be done. Don't make no mistake. The forces on the other side, Jewel and all the people who make the flavors and the retailers and such, are going to put up a fight. They're not going to back away from here easily. And if we're going to stand up for these kids, we've got to make sure that they understand that we're resolute. What an encouragement it is to have the mayor of Chicago come forward, as she did this morning, and express her commitment to this cause.
Can I just quick follow-up, because I hear on the radio all the time now ads from the company you target the most, Jewel, saying, we are doing everything possible to keep young people from using it. You have to have an ID in order to get it, age verification. What about those?
Well, let me tell you, I've seen this movie before. Big Tobacco said exactly the same
Joe
thing.
Camel.
Now, Joe Camel and Marlboro's Cowboy told us a different story. And they use the same tactics. What are they doing to convince the people that they're not selling their product to children? They buy full-page ads in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times and Washington Post. Now, we all know that when our kids get up in the morning, the first thing they do is to look for full-page ads in the Wall Street Journal to inform them about the day's activities. It's the kind of thing that happened with Big Tobacco. It is as phony as it comes. They are, at this point, we have 3% of adults in America who are vaping and 20% of kids. So let's get serious about this. This vaping targets kids, and it's got to come to an end.
Senator Durbin, a couple of the local victims we've heard from, including the young man who is suing Jewel, who held a press conference last week, they've admitted to using THC-infused vaping products. I know in Wisconsin last week near Milwaukee, the Kenosha County Sheriff's Office arrested 2 brothers there with over $1 million worth of these THC cartridges they believe could be linked to the illnesses there. Do you have any update on the investigation and what is causing people to get sick? Are you concerned it could be THC products versus just the regular Juul?
The way I understand it, they've taken the flavor cartridges and put in THC, an operative chemical from cannabis. And that has been linked to one death for sure. But the medical community has not drawn a general conclusion yet as to what is actually killing people or hospitalizing them, and I don't want to get ahead of them. I want to have sound medical advice before I go forward. But my concern is if these cartridges can be tampered with and other things can be added to them, once we take the flavors off the market, the kids are going to start experimenting with other things to see how that works. And the bottom line is when you ingest or inhale this vapor into your lungs, it does great damage to the lung tissue to the point where some of these kids are dying. So I'm very fearful that if we don't take this seriously and quickly, we're going to see more complications emerge.
Just off topic if we can.
Well, is there any more on topic here? Okay, go ahead.
There's an article in the New York Times over the weekend that Congress may be looking to ban the sale of Chinese-made train cars in the U.S. because of concerns about spying. Chicago, of course, has a huge factory here that's waiting to start building those CTA trains. Where is that move as far as banning these sales? Is that going to happen?
I think we're going to face a vote on the defense authorization bill on that issue. I think Senator Cornyn of Texas is preparing a vote on the issue.
What are your concerns?
Well, my concerns first are national security. Beyond the whole question of the economics of this decision, we have to be mindful of the fact that whether it's Huawei or some other entity that is producing a product to be sold in the United States with technology, that we're not introducing into our economy and our society a means for the Chinese to monitor us or vital information. So we've reached that point, and when it comes to our dealings with them, and I'll take that into consideration as my first priority.
Mayor, can you comment on your concerns about losing the jobs that were coming?
I didn't say I was voting against it or for it.
Well-
Senator's answer.
Yeah, I think we have to get more information about it, obviously, but it is concerning. I mean, we've heard reports now for a number of years, and we continue to see the way in which the parts of the Chinese government are trying to infiltrate our society. I have grave concerns about the theft of our intellectual property, but again, I'm going to let the facts dictate what actions we take.
Can you also talk about your upcoming meeting with Tony Preckwinkle and then where things stand? Have you had a conversation, and what's on your agenda?
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about that. I think that we have to have a personal relationship that's not played out in the media. Any other questions?
Well, are we doing an off-topic later?
Yeah, we can do the off topic. Let's do this.
On topic.
Let's stay on topic and then we can shift gears. Yes, go ahead, Craig.
And this is to Dr. Jackson. You said that the school system, CPS, has a ban,
Yeah.
a system-wide ban, but as you heard from Principal Pitchovich, that, I mean, how effective can that ban be when this stuff can fly under the radar
Yeah.
so easily?
Well, I think the first step was to codify it in our student code of conduct, which Anna Pavitrovich was really instrumental in as she raised the alarms around this a year and a half ago. As she pointed out in her remarks, it really is difficult to detect. And so we don't want to create yet another thing that we have to police students around per se, but it is really important for parents and students as well as teachers to be able to identify these devices earlier. They are, easier. They are very difficult to identify. Some of them look like regular run-of-the-mill devices that students bring into school all the time, pens, flash drives, etc. And so while we work to raise awareness, this really isn't just about policing students. It really is about raising awareness around the dangerous effects of vaping so that they will choose not to do it in the first place.
What if they're caught in schools actually vaping?
And it's in our student code of conduct. I don't remember which group it's in, but again, our approach, as with marijuana, et cetera, is to make sure that we raise awareness and prevent students from doing it. So it's not something that they would be arrested for or even suspended initially. Our goal is to really try to prevent them from using it. And I think it's in group 2 of our student code of conduct, if I'm not.
Can I
Wrong.
just
Yeah.
say that the education associated, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
That the education associated with this issue is what's been missing. And now we have a room full of people through Dr. Fox, Dr. Jackson, Mayor Lightfoot, Senator Durbin, who are pooling together resources so that we can educate our youth. We find that our youth are not stupid. They're just ignorant of the dangers because they have been led down a path that is telling them that this is okay, it's safe, it's a safe alternative, it's a way to relax, it's a nothing. And so if I can tell each kid one at a time, my dean of students, we can do little parent nights, but this comprehensive effort is what is going to make the difference. And that is where I think our students are going to be responsive to the information they receive, because our students are academics, they are athletes, they are students who are interested in a future for this city and for themselves. And so they will respond, but we need to pull all of this together so everyone is communicating the same message. And that has happened.
Senator Durbin, with a nationwide FDA ban, how will that play out? How long do you think that will take, and how will it be enforced?
I think it's about a 30-day effort, as they've described it to it. Commissioner Dr. Sharpless met with a bipartisan group of senators, which included 4 or 5 Democrats, Senators Romney and Murkowski on the Republican side. It is a bipartisan effort. And they think the ordinary course of events is about 30 days from the announcement that they can get the word out to retailers. They're serious. And when they make a few stops and a few arrests of those who continue to sell these products, things change quite dramatically.
Any other on topic?
All right, any other questions? Okay,
Mayor, well, so on,
I was about to flee.
over the weekend, your lead negotiator sent the CTU a note telling them, hey, can we make a deal by the 27th, and you're not responding to our proposals. The union shot back that CPS isn't trustworthy, and they need it in writing. Can you respond to that?
Well, I think our intent in putting the progress to date in writing was to demonstrate that CPS is bargaining in good faith, that we have a sincere interest to try to move this process forward. And as I've repeatedly said for a long time, there's no reason why we can't get a deal done. The issues that are unresolved are important issues, but they're issues we could easily get done, and we're committed to doing that. If it means providing more physical resources to negotiate, ready to do it. Whatever it takes, we will get a deal done because it's important that we're fair to teachers, of course. It's important that we're fair to support professionals, but it's also important that we're fair to taxpayers and our kids. We started school the beginning of the school year is going well. There's no reason it should be disrupted, and we're going to do everything that we can to press forward to get a deal done so we can go on with the school year and focus on what's important, which is the educational experience of our kids.
Do you feel, you said you wanted to show the CPS is negotiating in good faith. Do you feel that they're not negotiating in good faith,
That who isn't?
the CTU?
No, I just think there are a number of outstanding issues we're anxious to get responses to so that we can move forward and get a deal done that's fair to teachers.
And Danny Solis has not been charged with a crime, but he's collecting a pension. The feds won't say whether they're gonna charge him with a crime and what kind of agreement they have with him. Do you think he should be allowed to collect a pension and not face charges at some point?
Well, I'm confident that he's going to face charges, and I don't want to get ahead of the U.S. Attorney's Office and the FBI, but I'm confident he will face charges, and there's going to be a day of reckoning for him.
What would the agenda items be for you, Attorney Pressmichael? Where do you see
You're not giving up, are you, Craig? Let me be clear. Let me be clear. I am the mayor of the city. I'm not a reality TV star. There are certain parts of my public life that are obviously open for fair discussion. I think we try to be as transparent as we can. But the personal relationships and what we're talking about, and I'm not going to get into that. I don't think it's appropriate. I don't think that's the way that you build trust and confidence, by playing out relationships in the public. So I'm just not going to go there, Craig.
I'm talking about the relationships, but I'm talking about the agenda. Where do you see the city and county best being able to work together? I mean, you've got.
There's a number of things that we can work together on. Obviously, our populations overact and overlap in large measure, whether it's on procurement issues, whether it's dealing with criminal justice issues, whether it's public health. There's a number of ways in which we could be productive partners.
Mayor, when you say that you're confident Solis will face charges, is that based on personal knowledge? Is
No.
that based on your experience as a prosecutor?
It's look, if you look at you all have obviously laid out in bold relief the allegations against him. And obviously, I'm a former federal prosecutor. I look and evaluate those through that lens. It's not based on something that somebody has told me. Obviously, that would be inappropriate and candidly a violation of the law. But I'm confident that he will face a moment of reckoning. What that will be, when that will be, that's not under my control.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Help this afternoon in recommending changes for the bills in the meeting this afternoon.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that before we see what they're going to propose. But we have a good, healthy relationship with them, and we're in frequent dialogue. So I'm confident that we will be able to get something done that makes sense. Thank you.
Guys.